Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. First of all, thank you to those people who complimented me on my first attempt. I know there's many improvements that can be made, but this is a work in progress. And secondly, before we get down to a chess game today, I'd just like to congratulate everyone who was involved in organising, supporting, and attending the chess festival in Trafalgar Square yesterday. It was a great day, amazing, brilliant to see families there, lots of kids having tremendous fun, whether that's on the big boards they had or just with their water pistols in the fountains. It was a scorching, scorching hot day. I mean, for England, I believe it was 31, 32 degrees. It was, yeah, amazing, amazing day. And obviously, some of the top English players, chess players, were there. Mickey Adams was playing Simmels and all sorts of stuff. Gawain Jones, of course, Danny King, one of the world's best commentators, another superb commentator being Chris Ward. All of these people were there supporting and giving their time. And Malcolm Payne must have lost pounds yesterday. I'm not talking about dodgy bets, but he must have lost. He used up so much energy. He was the host with everything. It was reminding me of a younger Bruce Forsyth, the way he was encouraging members of the crowd. He was running around. He was organising and talking, and it was just a really great event. Here's a few pictures taken yesterday. As I say, it was a lovely hot weather, and let's get on to playing some chess now. Before we start playing, another thing people ask me is, how did you begin playing chess? Well, I can say as an 11-year-old in 1970, those with calculators can now quickly work out my age. I actually broke my foot quite badly playing football. In fact, I show you how good I was at football. I broke my foot while kicking a goalpost. So, hey, I wouldn't make many Premiership sides. In fact, I wouldn't make any sides. But the best thing about breaking my foot was that a friend taught me to play chess. And of course, we're talking 1970. There was no internet, there were no computers, there were no PlayStations or Xboxes. Everyone played board games. And chess and Risk I played throughout my teenage years and loved them. But I got so obsessed with chess that when I stopped school and I looked for my first job, I found a job actually in a factory where they made chess pieces. And I thought that was just a job for me for the rest of my life. But sadly, I had to give the job up because I couldn't manage the night shift. That is the last bad joke of the day, I hope. Let's get down to lead chess now. This is going to be my last game playing the computer. I'm still using it because I haven't yet got to grips with thinking and talking, believe it or not, because obviously if you play a blitz game, you can talk and sort of hustle your opponent if they're a friend of yours. But when you play proper club chess, it's pretty much hush. And you can do your thinking, but I'm just not used to playing chess and um, talking aloud at the same time. So I'm playing Stockfish again. I've gone up a couple of levels to make the game more difficult for me and hopefully more interesting for the people watching. So let me go on to Stockfish, and I'll take the black pieces today to mirror the white pieces that I had for our first game. I've also, you'll see, set up the game with a 20-second increment, which will give Stockfish no help at all, but it will allow me to talk just a bit more without having to panic over losing on time. So here we go. Okay, so a neutral move from the opponent, but I'm just going to grab the center with d5. And my opponent's hit back with d4, which controls the c5 and the e5 squares, but the knight on c3 may not be ideal. So I'm just going to develop my knight to f6. So we've only seen knight moves so far. Well, I don't want to move my knight to c6 because at some stage I want to move in the c pawn. And in fact, maybe I'll move the c pawn anyway. It seems as though it doesn't do a lot for my development, which is true. But it does stop a piece coming to b5. So I'm just going to play this. Okay, well, generally this can't be a good idea. It doesn't mean to make it a bad move, but with white moving the same piece twice, I'm just going to develop my knight to d7. And white has now only made knight moves, but he's moved his knight 3 times to land up on the d3 square. So white is certainly not ahead in development anymore. And I just have to decide how I'm going to get my bishops into the game. And I'm just going to play this move. Now, again, this looks like I've got a cramped and passive position. You can see that my pawns on f7, e6, d5, c6 and b7 all create like a pyramid or a triangle, which is quite strong. But my bishop on c8 may struggle to get into the game, but I'll deal with that a bit later. So I'll develop this bishop to the d6 square, where the bishop will be looking at the h2 pawn if white castles that way. And of course white moves his g pawn, which blunts my bishop. But I'm still happy for the square that my bishop's on. And I'm just going to castle now, which means my king has reached relative safety, and I can now start thinking about the plan that I want to go ahead with. Now, if I have any advantage in this position, it is that I have castled and my opponent hasn't castled, and that means that perhaps I should try and break open the centre whilst my opponent's king is still on the starting square of e1. So I'm going to pull my pawn to e5, where it's attacked by the knight and the pawn, but defended by my bishop and my knight. And pushing this pawn will also enable my bishop on c8 to come into the game. Okay, I mentioned that I broke my foot earlier, well, not earlier, a long time ago when I was 11. And this helped me to learn to play chess because a friend kindly taught me. Let me just make a move on here. So I'm going to recapture. And talking about football, I'd just like to say that a young lady that I know who is a tremendous gamer, one of the most ferocious and superb Fortnite players that I've ever seen. Her name is Ruby Leppenwell. Shout out to Ruby that on her recent school report, the headmistress reported that apart from her academic studies, which are very good, she's also a very talented football. So something that doesn't run in the family because she's actually my granddaughter. And I hope that her football prowess will always be much better than mine. I better get back to this game. Now my opponent has moved his queen, but his king is still stuck in the middle. And ideally I'd like to be able to develop my bishop to a good square. And I'm thinking of playing g6 so that I can push my bishop to f5, which will be attacking the queen. But I'm also thinking about the possibility of moving my rooks to the center. So I'm going to play my queen to c7 first of all. Okay, so my opponent is now ready to castle. And I'm going to play my bishop to g4, which means that my plan of putting the bishop on the diagonal, which runs from b1 here to h7, attacking the queen, I can do that by dropping the bishop back to h5 and then putting it onto g6. But in the meantime, my piece, which is probably doing not a lot, is this rook on a8. So let's move that to stand opposite my opponent's queen. Okay, now I'm still looking at a way of breaking forward in the centre, and I can play d4 because if my opponent takes back, then I can capture either with the bishop or the rook. And I think I'm going to do this because I have got the advantage in space. Right, so of course I was attacking the knight and the pawn. And rather than capturing straight away, which will attack the queen, I'm going to get this rook into the game as well. So I now have some sorts of threats of possibly capturing on e3, and then when the queen captures, I can then move the bishop, and I'll be attacking the white queen. In fact, I've got quite a few nasty traps in this position. I'm attacking the queen, as you can see. Okay, well that's an interesting move because it lets me win the queen. I mean, black is sorry, I am black. White is attacking quite a few pieces, but a queen is a queen at the end of the day. And you can see after all the pieces have been captured that I have one rook, a bishop and a knight, and my opponent has two rooks, a bishop and a knight, but I also have a queen, so I do stand a lot better in this position, and I've also got a move which attacks my opponent's knight and also pins this rook, which means the rook won't be able to move. So I'm now attacking the knight. I'm also attacking the bishop, which isn't protected, which is why he's captured the bishop. However, I take back with the knight, and the rook is, as I say, is pinned. And my opponent seems to have gone from making very good moves to making pretty poor moves. So I can just take the rook with a check. King has to move. Okay. And now I could take the knight, but I don't think I need to rush to do such a thing. So the knight is not really going to many squares. So I think I'd rather take the pawn and actually try and hunt down the king, because taking a piece will win you the game in the long run if your piece is up. However, checkmate will win the game in the short run. So let's get my queen right into action. Obviously, it's defended by the knight. Okay, and we can see now that the white king is in a very precarious position. The only things I have to worry about is being back row mated, but that's hardly going to happen with the white rook is nowhere getting down to my back row. But what I'll do, I'll play a pawn move anyway to h5. This stops any back row threats, but it also prevents the king escaping from his box to this square here. Now my queen's under attack, but I've got a simple move here, checking the king. The king can't go to h4 because it's mate on the move, so the king will have to go to g2. And then my rook comes into the game. So the rook is coming down to... Okay, so this is checkmate in a couple of moves. So the first move is here, and next move I just take the pawn on h2. We can see that that's checkmate because the pawn here is preventing the king from moving. So all in all, Another interesting game. I'm not sure, to be honest, that I played that well. I'm not sure. Well, Stockfish certainly didn't play well. The opening was quite interesting. What happens after that, I really don't know. But tomorrow I'm going to play a human. Or no, next game, it may not be tomorrow. I'll have lots of chores to do around the house. So if I've done the washing up, the hoovering, the road sweeping, then we'll get another game of chess. But it'll definitely be against a human opponent. And if I make a few mistakes as I made in this game, I shall most likely lose. But thank you so much again for watching. I can assure you that the videos and chess will only get better. Thank you very much. Keep safe. Bye.